where we dive on into this phenomenal text by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. If you've never had the privilege of picking up that text and diving into this text, you need to do so today. Today is your day for that, for sure. And I'm excited to be with you on another Saturday morning. This is November 2nd, and we have dove into this text all year long, and we're diving on into another one. And today we have a very special guest that's going to join us as we go into another chapter of Think and Grow Rich today. And I'm very excited to tease him up pretty soon. But before we do, got a couple of angels that are here with me. First, no other than the master wealth builder, Miss Ann McNeil. Good to see you this morning. How are you doing today, my dear?
My friend Les Brown says, it is better to be seen than to be viewed. And so I am so excited to be here again with our special guest today, part 2 of discovering, or I should say recovering, or I should say maybe uncovering our subconscious mind. And the more I delve into this subject and this topic, the more I understand that I don't understand how my mind works. And I should maybe put an S on the end of that, my mind's work. And I think we're going to get a really good idea today for each and every one of our guests that are listening in. Please remember to subscribe to the YouTube, but also please comment, like, and share this podcast with your family, friends, or foe, because when we begin to tap into this subconscious mind principle, and we begin to understand that it does not sleep day or night, and that every thought impression is making an impression that cannot be ignored, if you will. So I'm excited to get this party started.
And I'm very excited there with you as we dive on into another aspect of our mind, the subconscious mind there for sure. So we're going to go deep, deep into this because that's a part of our mind that we don't pay a lot of attention to day in and day out. We just focus on what's going on right in front of us. But there's another angle to that. Galen, the leadership strategist. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Fantastic, fantastic. As I was listening to Ms. Ann, I was thinking about what do you think about when you're thinking about what you're thinking about, right? When you're thinking about your thoughts, what's going on there? Or better, what are you thinking about when you're trying not to think about something, right? That's your subconscious mind. And we say quite often that the conscious mind is an incredible, incredible muscle. It can analyze anything, it can contemplate anything, but it doesn't control behavior. It's the subconscious mind that controls behavior. And until you can understand how to control and influence your subconscious mind, then anything that you're accomplishing, quite honestly, is just by luck and chance. You've got to be able to influence, inform, and mold your subconscious mind in order to accomplish anything on purpose, which is at the core of the book Think and Grow Rich. So can't wait to get into this conversation. Glad that we're going to be having our guests back because we get to go deeper. The first time is just kind of an introduction. The second time we start scratching the surface, but now we get to go deep and really get into how do you influence, mold, and leverage your subconscious mind to do the things that you want to accomplish on purpose.
Galen, we're swinging for the fence on this third time for sure. So I'm excited to introduce our very special guest today. No stranger to our show, Rex Steven Sykes has 4 decades of experience transforming lives globally. He's the creator of Mind Design and Directed Questions and a master trainer of NLP and DHE. Rex is an expert in whole brain learning, the law of attraction, and the works of thought leaders like Napoleon Hill. Go figure. He offers live and online training on transformation, mind design, LOA, and NLP. Rex is a professional speaker, mentor, consultant, actor, and filmmaker. He authored Life on Your Terms, Create the Life You Want, and created the Attitude Activator, Rex is the founder of Idea Seminars and provides seminars, training events, and customized business consulting. He coaches authors, speakers, performers, and professionals from various fields, helping them to achieve their goals and live life on their terms. He has appeared in films, TV, and radio and consults for attorneys and also the news media. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce you to Mr. Rex Sites. Rex, good morning to you, sir. How are you doing today?
I am thrilled to be here with you and Ann and Galen. I appreciate the opportunity to spend more time with you and with the people who watch. Thank you, and thanks for the introduction.
Absolutely. And Rex, outside of your bio, which I just read a little bit, introduce yourself for the what do you want people to know about Rex on the surface before we get into the subconscious mind?
Well, I'm a father. I'm a human. I'm on the planet. I do a lot of different things, and my passion has been to share the discoveries that I have discovered, uncovered, and spent a lifetime trying to ascertain and share them with other people. And I've been doing this for now almost 50 years, and or 50 years or more. And the excitement never wears off. You know, if you when you recapture the joy of learning and discovery and having a marvelous life. That joy, that passion, pervades everything. So I'm always thrilled, even when I'm not.
And really quick, I'm going to steal a question from Ann McNeil before we get into our video that talks about Think and Grow Rich. How long have you been diving into Napoleon Hill's phenomenal text?
Well, me,
Yes, you, yes.
because I was 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to tell you how old I am, but I'm 69. And so for 63 years, I asked my mom to read me books when I was a kid because I mentioned this in the other shows that we've done is that I thought the priest in the Catholic Church that I was going to as a child had this mystical connection with a supreme being of sorts, and I wanted to have that connection. So I said, read whatever they're reading, whatever they're doing. And so she started reading books around the house that included Hill and Waddles and Buddha and the Bhagavad Gita and all sorts of books. And when I got to be able to read on my own, apart from reading like the Hardy Boys and kid detective stories and things like that, I read all of the self-help and philosophical and brain science stuff I could find, and I've been doing it ever since. I read it. I've read, with the exception of maybe a year and a half, I read Think and Grow Rich and the works of Hills and others every single day of my life.
Wow. Wow. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. I'm ready to dive on in to see how that has impacted you in your life. And also, even as we dive on into this chapter of the subconscious mind. But before we do, I'm going to ask Ann McNeil to tease up this video that we look at every single week that kind of gives us an overview of this text. Ann, do you mind?
Do I mind? Are you kidding? Oh my goodness, absolutely. I do not mind. And every time I'm given the opportunity to share anything about this philosophy and this principle in particular, I am reminded that it all connects with this first principle that the video is going to share with us, and that is the principle of the desire. And when you think through your desire, every one of these principles that you will hear has a connecting link, if you will. And if any of those links are weak, it will definitely weaken your desire to achieve that, if you will. Not weaken the desire, but weaken your actions towards the desire, if you will. So from desire to faith, to autosuggestion, to specialized knowledge, all the way down to where we are today, which is your subconscious mind. Please, please get a pen and a pad. Take notes on the video, and then when we come back, take notes on the podcast. So let's roll the video.
Number one is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical. But what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right, there you have it.
Good stuff there, Ann Neil. Thank you so much for teeing that up for us. Always excited to watch that video, which allows me to think about this text in a number of different ways every time I listen to it. Rex, I want to bring you back in today, sir. And, I'm looking at this text in chapter 11 of this Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And Napoleon Hill says you cannot entirely control your subconscious mind, but you can voluntarily hand it over to any plan, desire, or purpose with which you wish transformed into concrete form. As you reflect yourself on this subconscious mind topic there, Rex, how has this been manifested for you in your life, affecting the subconscious mind, if you will?
Wow. The interesting thing about the subconscious and the brain and the conscious mind is they kind of get all lumped together by us, as people. And the interesting thing is that what it said, that all thought, all creativity, everything originates in the subconscious mind. And then we think about the subconscious mind. So it's thinking about itself.
Mhm.
Which gets kind of like, spooky in some ways. It's like, whoa, how do you think about that? And it was, brought up before. Galen, I think, was mentioning it. And so one of the things that I think is important is how we understand our subconscious mind. And there are different descriptions of it throughout history. And, science tries to illuminate us on certain things and everything else. And I think Hill did a good justice. But if I can kind of circle back and approach it this way, there's the concept in linguistics. There's a Fear-Worth hypothesis. Some people don't like it, and other people embrace it. I tend to appreciate it, and that is, it says that you cannot experience life any further than your language will take you, and that's why. Between languages, we have difficulty translating. We say, well, we don't have a word for that. They understand it this way. There are certain groups of people in the world who understand three colors, like red, yellow, and brown, or something. And we have a different color scale. We have 64 crayons in a crayon box or something. And then the computer comes along and says it's 250 some million colors. And, it's very difficult for us to be able to appreciate what it must be like if you only have three colors, what it's like if you have 12 or 64 colors, if you have two, so if there's not a way for us to describe it, it's very difficult for us to appreciate it. So there are those ahas where you have these experiences that go beyond anything you can describe. It is the same, but not quite like the same as saying, well, what does an orange taste like? I can't describe it to you and have you appreciate it, but I can try. I can use different words and that you might be able to appreciate if you've had some experience. Well, the subconscious mind is a lot like that, in that Hill said it, if you can conceive it, if the human mind can conceive it and you can bring yourself to believe it, then you can achieve it. And he said, I didn't say will because I don't know what you're going to do with it, but it starts with the conception. There's also the statement saying that if you can't conceive of a reality, or in order to behave in a certain reality, you first must conceive of that reality, which is essentially what Hill was saying. So the better we understand our subconscious, conscious mind, or the brain, or whatever it is, the better it is. So here's a way of thinking about it. It's not a thing. A thing is like a ball. It's like an object. It's like the computer you're talking with, or the pen you write with. A thing is something that doesn't change, essentially. A process is like throwing the ball. In order for you to throw the ball, you have to be able to see the ball, pick the ball up, hold the ball, propel the ball. That requires all sorts of stuff that goes on inside your muscles and your intentions and everything, just to be able to throw the ball. And we don't know how we do that. We have the intention, I'm going to pick it up, I pick it up, I grasp it, I throw it. Now, for those people who have some neurological damage, they can't do that. They may want to do it, not be able to move the musculature, get their body to do it. So there's this really amazing relationship that goes on between conscious and subconscious, and it's all process based. It's not things. There are elements, physical brain, and but it's an electrical chemical process that keeps us alive, all of our body and everything else. So another way to think about it is think about your car engine. Your car engine is made up of lots of things, but in order for you to drive, it requires them to be working together in harmony, simultaneously and sequentially. And it's the process that is going on, not the thing that is making it happen. Without the process of those things working together, there's no motion, there's no movement. So the better you can understand your subconscious mind is, it's process based.
Hmm.
It's making connections. It's process based, and what those connections do is they get wired together. That the Hebb's rule or Hebb's law says that neurons that fire together wire together. Those that fire apart stay apart. So it's this coming together of habits, essentially neural habits, that are all initiated through electrochemical triggering. Wow. So, okay, now what do we do with that? Well, if you understand that there's no person inside your head dictating what you do other than you consciously deciding, that those processes are there to serve you. They're there to keep you alive, to keep you thriving. They are an incredible blessing. It's what allows us to do anything and everything we do. And it's not there to harm you or hurt you or foul you up. It's not there to have negative beliefs that screw you around or any of this kind of stuff. What it is these processes that are reliably working, because this is how the brain works. The subconscious mind creates neural wired habits. And if you can understand that and then begin to appreciate it, you can begin to release and let go of the conceptions that we have about the subconscious mind that interfere with us working with it really wonderfully, because it's a servant. If we understand that, it works because we intend it to work, and we haven't a clue how it actually does it.
Love you went so deep there, because you had me at the car engine, and I was thinking about the alternator, which is a thing.
Right.
But this subconscious mind is not a thing as you've described. It's more of the process. Listen, I could stay with you on this for hours. We have other people here with us. It's not just me and you, though, Rex. So let me pass it over to Galen Bingham. Galen, such an intricate conversation about this subconscious mind, and we can go in 100 different directions. What have you, sir?
Oh my gosh, so much. Dr. Peter, I'm going to ask Dr. Peter
Yeah.
and Miss Ann, I'm going to ask you guys, turn off your video just for a second. Just
Okay.
turn off your video just for a second.
All right.
Miss Ann, if you would.
I'm trying to get there.
Okay, all right. Because Rex, I got a question. I got a personal one-on-one question. Because one of the things you said, and I couldn't type this fast enough to capture exactly what you said. You said you can't be a thing until you can conceive of being a thing.
No, not a thing. Well, yeah. I mean, it says in order to live in a reality, you have to first conceive of the reality.
Okay, all right.
So, in other words, that's what we know as programming. But if you want to imagine, being wealthy, if you want to live a wealthy life, you need to imagine being wealthy before you can create that wealthy life.
I love it. I love it. And that caused me to think of the author Gay Hendricks, who wrote The Big Leap. And one of the things that I take from The Big Leap is what he calls the upper limit problem, where people have in their mind a certain level of success. And if they're not achieving that success, they will work really, really hard to achieve that level of success. If they're over delivering against or trending to over deliver against that level of success, they'll kind of take it easy because, well, I can go ahead and do that level of success. And so we're always living to this conception of what we believe what we believe is possible. And so my personal question is, when I was 8 years old, I overheard my parents talking at the table. They weren't even talking to me. I don't even know who they were talking about, but they said something like, this guy's become so successful, he's become one of those kind of people. And so for me, that suggests that there's a certain level of success that you can have, that you become one of these undesirable people. I don't know who that is. I don't know where that is. I don't know what that level is. But how can I work through, this is personal, how can I work through this it doesn't make sense at a conscious level, but at a subconscious level, my subconscious is saying there's a level that you don't want to go to because you'll become one of those kind of people.
Well, yes, perhaps. I mean, in others, maybe that's your conscious mind that's saying you don't want to go there because that's what you're aware of and that's what you recall. And what we then say is, well, that's how somehow in the subconscious that we have a belief somewhere in there about this, and that guides us. Um, the fact that you have brought it to light means that you can now question it and go, well, is that how I want to live? Am I one of those kind of people? What does it mean to be one of those kind of people? Because there are the counterexamples. There are those people who get really, really wealthy and rich and have fabulous and wonderful lives, and they're philanthropists and they're generous and they're compassionate and they're caring and they hear other people. So those kinds of people may be the kind of person you want to be, unless you want to be one of those other kind of people. Now you have a choice. If you don't realize you have a choice, well, you'll just operate from whatever choice you previously made. So the key is it's now been illuminated, and I submit that the fact that you have brought that up either here or elsewhere in your life is something that you're aware of. So it's something that you ultimately, you can change it. You can do anything you want with it because it's within your domain. It's within your power to choose how you want to be differently. And then if you entertain chapter 3 on auto suggestion, then that's how you change it. I think it's a great question and it's a worthy exploration. I think not only you, Galen, but many of us have grown up with those kinds of thoughts or ideas. What happens is people say, well, I have a limiting belief. And the limiting belief prevents me from doing something, or I sabotage myself. And I'm like, well, those are interesting beliefs. You believe you have a limiting belief and you believe you sabotage yourself. So what are the first beliefs you might want to change? I would change the belief that I have limiting beliefs and that I sabotage myself. And how would I do that? I would begin to think differently about it. I would begin to, as well, whenever I come up with against something where I go, I want to go forward, but I feel like I'm being held back. That's the subconscious. That's that process of saying, here's what I've learned to do, and I don't go there, right? When you hit that boundary, that's a blessing. The very fact that you hit that wall, apparently, is a blessing. It's like your alarm clock going off in the morning going, guess what? It's time to get up. It's time to wake up. It's the time, because without it, you wouldn't know that there was a boundary. So your emotions or your feelings, or the feelings combined with a thought of I can't do this, or I don't know how to do this, or is a godsend, really. Because when you realize that, that's what you can then transform or change. But the first way to do it, and why I talked about the subconscious earlier, is you want to embrace it. You want to have a really wonderful relationship with yourself. If you're sitting there going, I want to do this, but I prevent myself. I want to do it, but my subconscious mind thwarts me. I want to do it, but I have all these limiting. Then all you're doing is self-criticizing and being negative and down on yourself and continuing that programming instead of going, what would I rather do instead? How can I do that? What can I find? What can I discover? How much fun might I do? I mean, in other words, life is to be lived and enjoyed and to be celebrated, not just to be a workhorse and do all these things and struggle and fight and try and get better. It's to enjoy who you are. And I think Think and Grow Rich, when Napoleon Hill said it, and most people lose sight of it, they think it's all about money, but it's really about having a fabulous life. And money can be part of that if that's what you want. And Hill throughout his life went up and down with money. And then at the end of his life said, what's better than having money is having, peace, having a peaceful life, that kind of thing. But there's nothing wrong with wealth. So it's whenever we come up against something that we go, well, I don't think so. I don't like that. I can't do that. It goes back to Henry Ford saying, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're absolutely correct. So what a beautiful insight. What a great question.
Dr. Peter, it's not my show. It's not my show. So I'll turn this back over to you.
Not my show either. I should be.
No, you're good. I'm going to bring Ann McNeil in for her question. I know she's chomping at the bit with some questions there as she thinks about this subconscious mind. Actually, I hear it so much from her about how we need to think differently before we even act. It's easy for us to act, to do, to execute, but it's more challenging for us to reflect and ask ourselves what is going on deep inside of ourselves that we need to prepare before we even think about executing. Ann McNeil.
Now, this was not a setup question. It really was not a setup question. But in my book, it is entitled A Daily Date with Myself. Over the years of reading this particular principle, I began to journal. And in 1994, I went on a journey to understand, how do I tap into my own subconscious mind? How do I tap into this creativity? And then I realized that through reflecting and journaling, that could possibly be it. But as I began the journey, and I took a picture that's in my office, and I don't have it in front of me, but if you can just imagine a desk all the way almost to the ceiling of nothing but journals, hundreds of journals along the wall. And we took boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of all my journals that I had stacked up. We moved my office, and I've stacked them up, and I took a picture. Now, coming back to this principle, each one of us, as we learn the fact that there is a difference between all of these minds, if you will, whether it's your subconscious mind, your conscious mind, all of the different minds of the body, all of these things. The question for me, for you, Rex, and all of us is, how do you go from that thought, that hunch, that inspiration into the realization or the reality of taking the action to create that thing, whether it's a product, a business, or whatever it is? And I like your backdrop behind you that says life on your terms. Can you share with us? And I shared my journey, and what I mentioned in showing this book is that I began to realize for myself, it's a daily date with myself that sometimes, if I'm not careful, can consume hours of reflecting my thoughts, connecting with the subconscious mind, documenting what am I thankful and grateful for, documenting the desires of my hearts and my opportunities. And so what does that process look like for you, Rex, so that this subconscious mind of yours that is interacting with the conscious, can you give us that a glimpse into a day in your life where you can take us from that beginning of that activity to, let's say, the book behind you, where you're taking actions to create something?
So there are a lot of different ways to approach things or describe things, and we can come at it from lots of different angles. For example, Napoleon Hill says it's think and grow rich, not work hard and grow rich. Somebody else will say it's thinking, then emotions, then behaviors, then results. Somebody else will say, no, it's your emotions, and then your thoughts, and then your behaviors. And another person say, well, you have a physiology, and if you just move your body and you use your body, you then change your thinking. And all of it's accurate. You can change how you feel by moving your body. You can change how you feel by thinking differently. You can change how you're feeling by tuning into a different emotion, and how you get there. There's many, many different ways to do that. I'm very in love with meditating and having that experience, and have been doing that, most of my life, as a way of just allowing whatever is to be is. So when you say getting lost in reflection, wow, how cool, But so here's to try and answer that. Napoleon Hill has essentially given us the thing. If you can conceive it and then bring yourself to believe it, you can achieve it. So what's the first step? Well, conceive it. So the idea. Then we're told, well, write it down. Even he says, make a plan. Build a plan. Your plan is going to change. It's going to evolve differently, but you make the plan. When you put it down on paper and you write it, it's the first step in making it concrete. In other words, it goes from the head to something physical. Well, now you have something to work towards. And if it's an intention versus a wish or a want, something you intend to do, Hill says now you have to bring yourself, you live with passion, you make it a burning desire, but you develop the certainty that you will accomplish it. So if you can conceive it and believe it, And he says, bring yourself to believe it. It's not as if it is given to you or dumped on you or anything else. You bring yourself to believe it. And that's what the chapter in auto suggestion is about, or doing the self-confidence formula, or any of the things that he'll encourages you to do. So you think about it, you consume it, you do it, you move from where you're at. And I think we've discussed this a couple of times, but like the Wright brothers, they didn't know how to fly until after they flew. They were experimenting all the while, but they knew what they wanted to accomplish. And so they set out to do that. They had to believe that they could get somewhere, or you wouldn't even begin to bother. And in spite of all of the opposing thoughts and the ridicule that they faced from family and people around them, they continued to experiment until they flew. And then once they flew, they went, whoa, we've done it. But it started with the intention, we're going to do this, and the faith that they would do it, and then the application of actually doing it and continuing to do that day in and day out, no matter what happened, until it was done. The same thing about, Edison and the light bulb, and, so in my day, if there's something that I intend to do, it depends. There are some things that I don't need to. The idea of faith is an interesting thing. If I said, Galen, it looks like can you turn around and see the book behind you on your back there? Are you able to do that? Yeah, right back there. Can you just turn and look? All right. Did you need a lot of faith or confidence to be able to do that? I would guess no, you just do it, right? There are things that we can just do because we know how to do them. So a lot of people get stuck on, I don't know how to do it, and I need confidence to do it, or I don't feel like I could do it. And this goes back to what we were saying before. Those are the very things that you should probably change first. You can be confident almost immediately, but confidence without competence is a dangerous thing. If I'm confident that I could, walk a tightrope at 60 feet in the air without ever having done it, I'm pretty stupid. So I want to be able to do the skill, develop the skill, and have the confidence to do it. Where I need the confidence is to begin the process of learning how to do that, not that I'm the best tightrope walker before I actually am. So you can learn to do anything if you have that in mind. Your subconscious mind is an incredible learning machine. If you embrace it and celebrate it and have a wonderful relationship with it, stop slapping yourself up, stop the negative, self-talk and criticism and bad feelings, and go, you know what? I'm doing the best I can with what I have. I'm a learning machine. I live a life of process. Things come and go, and I'm figuring it all out, and I'm going to have a good time while I'm doing it. At the same time, you can accomplish more because you're not dividing yourself with, I'm good, I'm not good, I'm good, I have bad beliefs, I'm good, I've got this glass ceiling, I'm good, but and I don't know why. Well, it's my childhood. In other words, that's the stuff that drains our energy. It's like on a dock with one foot on the dock and the other foot on the boat and going back and forth constantly, but never getting anywhere. The way you get somewhere is you put either both feet on the dock or both feet on the boat and go where you want to go.
Rex, thanks so much. And it's some great ways to think about this. How do we get in our way when we're trying to dive into this? I love that analogy about the Wright brothers and them thinking about the plane and know they wanted to fly, know they were going to fly. Right. What gets in the way of how do we get in our own way when we're trying to think about the future? Is it self-doubt? What comes to mind as you reflect on that, if you could?
Well, I would submit that you've answered your own question in many ways, in that, and staying with the works of Napoleon Hill, but if when I teach and train and share and talk and write books and do online or offline programs, one of the things, especially in person or online, is to create a climate where things become possible. Because if you think something is impossible, you're never going to do it. So you invite people into a training arena where it's safe and it's inviting and it's pleasant. It can be challenging and stretching in a way that is still safe and accommodates them, in all the ways. But it's an invitation to explore. I always say, exploration is a doorway to adventure, and curiosity is that key. So the more curious you become, the more you have the opportunity to explore, and the more you explore, the more adventure you can find. So if you make a statement like, I'm no good at that, and that's it, and you stop there, and you don't feel good about it, then what? And people go, well, I wish I could get over it, but I don't feel good. Well, you could say, well, how else could I feel? What else might I be doing? What thoughts might I need to entertain in order to feel good about myself? Where do I need to put my attention in order to have more fun or delight or to discover a breakthrough? It's if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. And the brain is beautiful in the sense that it will learn anything that you teach it, but it has a certain process. That process pretty much is the auto-suggestion process. It's correct repetition repeatedly for long enough until you get the result you want. As the neurons wire together, they fire together, kind of thing. But so it'll learn anything, but it will also perpetuate anything it's already learned until you retrain it. So if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got, and you don't like that, now's the time to go, oh, I need to retrain it. If a dog or a horse isn't doing what you want, you can punish the dog, you can get rid of the dog, you can sell the dog, whatever, or you can retrain the dog or the horse. And that's what people seem to miss. They start blaming themselves, or they blame other people, they blame the environment, they blame circumstances, instead of going, I've encountered this, what seems to be opposition in me. And now that I feel it, I can do something about it. In other words, where people stay the same is when they don't see their blind spots. That's why when you're driving, you look in the mirror and you look behind you in order to check to make sure there's nothing there. That you have to look. If you uncover a blind spot or something that's a less than glorious feeling, again, that's a marvelous opportunity. The difficulty we have is that we weren't brought up going, when you feel bad, it's a good thing, because we don't want to feel bad and we don't want to make other people feel bad. And we don't, that kind of thing. But the point is, when you feel bad, it's a sign, it's a signal, it's an opportunity to go from feeling bad to not feeling bad. But there's a process that you go through to do that. If you don't do anything, you end up feeling bad or self-doubt. So it's a sign to go, here's how you can take charge. Here's how you can live life on your terms. Here's how you can initiate the change that may release you from all of the stuff that's been bothering you. And people go, well, I don't know how to do that. Get curious. It's not, who do I go to? What do I do? How do I do it? I don't know how. It's where do I need to put my attention? What other could I feel? How, if there's something else I could feel, what kinds of things allow me to feel that? In other words, people say, I don't feel like having fun. Well, before there was psychology, what did people do? Before philosophy, what did they do? They either went out and worked in the garden, they ran around the block, they had sex, they had fun, they had a feast, they did something. You have to understand that some of our wisdom goes way, way, way back, and that's take your mind off of your problem and go put it on something else, and you'll find, guess what? Your problem disappears. You want to know something really, really weird? Back in the 80s, it's about mid-80s, there were studies that had been done prior to that on getting, like drug therapy, psychoanalysis, and group therapy. Psychoanalysis is very expensive, one-on-one, counseling. Group therapy, expensive, but not quite as expensive. Both take a long time. And then drug therapy was considered cheap at the time, not anymore, but at the time, cheap and the most effective way to do things, right? So all of them had a statistical significance of 33 1/3, meaning they're all exactly the same. Didn't matter what you did, they all had the same result was demonstrated. What became the one of preference? Drug therapy, because at the time it was easiest to dispense and what. So the interesting part about that, though, is the placebo effect also suggests that the drug may or may not work. So we know that there are people who've been taking, there was a recent story about a guy who overdosed on placebos and was near death and in the emergency hospital, and they're trying to figure out what happened, and they ran tests on him, found out he didn't have any of the drugs he thought he took because he'd been given placebos. And there's this historic study of Mr. Wright, and you can Google this yourself. Mr. Wright was a person who they wrote about in the press many years ago, who got some medicine from a doctor. He said, I need this medicine. The doctor gave it to him. It was horse medicine. but he gave him a placebo. And I want you to look it up yourself. Go find it. Not you guys, but I mean, whoever wants to look it up yourself, because you can believe me or you can go find the research. But the point is that there's another amazing study that said if somebody has an intervention or doesn't have an intervention, is it more effective? And the answer to that in the long-term study was no, there was no difference. One, they got better sooner because they had an intervention. The other one, they got better anyway when they were left alone because they found out ways to get better. So we have to understand that so much of what we've been conditioned to do in our upbringing from our psychologists, our religious leaders, our medical practitioners, our parents and peers it doesn't serve us very well. It's been blame yourself somehow. You're broken if it doesn't work. You're not good enough. There's people who are better than you, or any of these kinds of things, and we've embraced them. And it's time that we just dispense with them and release them and let them go. And the only way you can release and let them go is to release and let them go. And that means put your attention somewhere else.
As a college professor, I used to hear this a lot from students. Professor, I'm no good at math. I'm no good at math. I'm no good at math. And, many of us who are listening have said that at some point in our lives, and so we've shied away from that. If we don't have a calculator close by, we're staying away from it. And I think that's just a great example of, what we manifest via our subconscious mind, and when sometimes we don't even realize it. Galen, some interesting conversation here, man, and it's something that we need to continue to pay attention to day in and day out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And again, I believe everyone struggles with this exact same thing at some level or another. Even in the work that we do as executive coaches, I'll tell you one of the places that I enjoy getting a dose of this reality check is the annual meeting. And so I want to just share with you that every year, at the first of the year, we have what we call an annual meeting. And I'm going to pull up the image here. Hold on one second. I'm going to pull up the image here. We have an annual meeting where we get together and we have to put our life in writing and talk about what it is that we're trying to accomplish. What's our plan for accomplishing that new reality? But more important, or as important, what have we done over the past year? And you have to put your life in writing. We come together with like-minded people who will speak life into those plans and help you put structure around creating that new reality. And as you'll see from the image, you've got people of all ages, all walks of life. And as I like to say, those small little kids on the front, they're the ones that they dig right in, right? They don't understand what's not supposed to be possible. They will question you and challenge you to believe that anything is possible. And you just need to have a plan towards achieving that. And I love the way Rex has kind of laid out that process. And it starts with believing that things are possible. So Boca Raton, January 3rd and 4th, 2025. You can go to internationalmasterminders.com. So internationalmasterminders.com. Register. It's less than... I would pay a couple $1,000s for this, but this is only a couple $100, and you get people there speaking into your dreams so that you can achieve success on purpose. Any of us can have success accidentally, but can you achieve success on purpose? This is the place where those dreams become reality. Ms. Ann, any thoughts here about this annual meeting?
Yes, Galen, actually, this morning in preparation for the podcast, I was reflecting on this principle of the subconscious mind and how creativity is impacted by it, by faith. And as I've reflected more, I went back to how did the International Mastermind Association, how did it form and why was it formed? And as I continue to go back even further, I went back all the way to my first mastermind group, second, third, fourth, fifth, until we were 100, meeting in homes. And we realized that it had gotten too big for a house. And not only had it gotten too big for a house, but that the lack of accountability of an individual mastermind group, and then the lack of accountability of groups. So imagine you have one mastermind group, a second mastermind group, a third mastermind group, a fourth mastermind group. Inside each mastermind group, the individuals have goals that they've set. But what we began to learn is that the group did not have a group goal. And there was no organization, not even within the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I'm going back almost 30 years now. Even inside of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, there were no organized associations that were holding mastermind groups accountable for a group goal. And as we began to look at that, there was a need to create an association that would hold the groups accountable. So I'll give my own group. I'm in a group for almost 20 years now called Palm Beach Life Planners. And even though we have individual group goals, the actual group has a group goal. Long time ago, our group goal was annually we would go on a retreat together as a group. But as we aged, we realized that we every year needed to ensure that we had long-term care. That was a group goal for 1 year. All of the members needed to get long-term care. The next year, we wanted to make sure all of the members had disability insurance. Now, I'm giving the backstory, and it's interesting you asked me this question because normally we don't go this level of detail, to help all of us understand the need and why it is so important to be held accountable, not just for your business vision and mission and all those things, but what about your life mission and vision? What about your health, which is your wealth? Are you having all of those annual exams? And for guys, you know that one that you just love. Every year it comes around, you can't wait. And then you reschedule. And then sometimes you reschedule again. And sometimes you look up and you say, oh my gosh, it's been 4 or 5 years. What if there's something there? But what if nobody's asking you that question? And so, Galen, you just tapped into something for me. And I'm not going to be apologetic about this because I believe that there's somebody listening to me in the future because this podcast is evergreen. We just finished talking about your subconscious mind, and Rex has done a phenomenal job. And Rex, I already have 12 pages. Yes, I didn't write every word for word, but I got enough to get this point. Your subconscious mind does not lie. We may lie on it, but it will not lie. It will take whatever you give it, and it will do with it whatever you tell it to do with it. But what if you're not telling anything to do with it? Like to have good health, which is my wealth, or to have good relations, all of these different things. And so, Galen, this international organization, utilizing the principles of Think and Grow Rich in this philosophy, it is changing lives, even internationally, because we've been blessed to take this philosophy into many associations and many organizations, encouraging people to create small mastermind groups of accountability. But what was missing was the fact that Ann McNeil was not encouraging all of those people to come join us every year in the first week of the year or second, depending upon the availability of the hotel, to join us for the accountability of your life. And you showed the picture where we have children and families. Where else? And this is what I was experiencing. I could not find a place that I could go with my family and my friends and my coworkers to be held accountable. I'm in 50 different civic and professional and personal associations. I could not go to any one of those and talk about my personal goals and aspirations, not just talk about them, but show up with a written plan of action for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And right now I'm in my 40 plus year in this process. And so I'm very encouraged and inspired. We're planning every single week to bring you the very best. It is not a conference like Galen likes to say. There's no conference bag. There's no keynote speakers. There's no breakout sessions. It's just you at a table with like-minded and like-spirited individuals, sometimes children, who are willing to sit.
Boy, she was saying such good stuff. She froze up.
This
Goodness gracious.
well expend. Pardon me?
You
Excuse
froze
me?
up a little bit on us.
Oh, that was because I said going over your goals or not if you didn't set any. Okay, not you in particular, Dr. James. I'm not talking to everybody else who's listening that have not set goals. Well, guess what? You still have time. So I'll wrap up with that. Please join us by going to the International Masterminders with an S.com and register.
And McNeil, I'm gonna stay with you really quickly. We have to put our seats in an upright position and fasten our seat belts. That being said, would you mind sharing with us? You kind of shared your aha, but how do we stay in touch with Ann McNeil?
Oh my goodness. I am hosting in 2 weeks my Life and Legacy Life Retreat. It's very small, very intimate, only a handful of people, but oh my gosh, some of the individuals have been coming now for over 10 years, and their life accountability and taking their life and their business to another level has just been phenomenal. You can get the details at annmcneil.com. That is ANNMCNEILL.com. And if you're looking to have a better quality of life in every area of your life, you can connect with us. Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you so much there. Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Some aha moments for you, sir. And then how do we stay in touch with you?
As far as aha moments, oh my gosh, this has been such a personal conversation. I mean, this has literally helped me along my journey. I love how Rex has helped me rethink and reevaluate what it is like, what it might be like to become one of those kind of people, right? And it starts with your intention. That's how I became a published author. Because I wanted to become a published author. That's how I became an award-winning podcaster. I set out with that intention, and last week the Davies Awards recognized the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast in the self-help category, recognized me as in the best host category. That's how I've become an advisor and coach to leaders around the world. As a matter of fact, that's how I've done everything except for my dream of becoming Janet Jackson's personal bodyguard. I haven't applied that exact same process there, but everything else, that's how it's happened. The last thing that I want to share that has really hit me hard is something that Ann just shared. She said that the subconscious mind will do whatever you tell it. What if we're not telling it anything? Many of us are letting our subconscious mind wander around on its own rather than telling it what to focus on. And oh my gosh, that hit me really, really hard. You can find me almost anywhere on social media. The best way to find me is to go to your favorite podcast platform and put in the search Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We talk to leaders all over the world about the whiskeys they drink, the music they listen to, and what it takes to really be an effective leader. Double dog dare you to try us at least once. Guarantee that you'll get something that'll help you advance into an area that is important to you. And then, Dr. Peter, I'm hanging out with you on a project. So what's going on with you?
We'll definitely dive into that. I'm so excited because this has been a phenomenal show. And yes, Galen, actually, I will say this, oftentimes, we put on this show and we think it's for the audience and our audience and everything, but actually, I think it's more for us than it is the audience, because when our guests come in, I am always taking a step back into and identifying, how can I apply this for me? Today was no different, especially because I need to think of how I need to impact my subconscious mind more so that I can have even better outcomes. And Rex really dove into that. So thank you so much for that, Rex. My name is Dr. Peter A. James, the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me in so many different areas. LinkedIn is the best one, but also shiftyourmindset.com or shiftyourmindset.com/own your career challenge, from which, beginning in January, turn of the year, if you want to take your life, your career, your business to the next level, this may be the place to be able to do so. Talk about subconscious mind. What are the nuggets that you need to repetitively seep into your subconscious mind? This is the place. For a small fraction of a cost, you get not only just one executive and leadership coach, you get two. Why not dive on in today? Sign up. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, folks, thank you so much there for that tee up there, Galen. Rex, this has been a phenomenal show, my friend. But before we go to you, I see the Master Wealth Builder has a question which may tie into you there, Rex. Hand me Neil.
Well, I just wanted to take a moment before we land the plane to acknowledge all of our studio YouTube guests in the audience every week. I know we did, but there are some comments by our regulars, such as Wyman. He just made a comment. He said, we must be intentional about programming our subconscious mind to ensure that it serves us in the pursuit of the desires of our heart. And then Lynn said, being able to accept yourself in all our imperfections. Oh man, excuse me, had a moment there. Can give us the confidence to move, especially when we have the competence to do it. And so there's so many comments in the chat. I just wanted to just acknowledge everybody, Johnny Lloyd, all of you, Yolanda Phillips, so many people that come on every week to share with us. And we just want to just make sure that we know that you're there. Listen, when I start calling names, I always get in trouble, but I wanted to just make sure we did that, please. Thank you.
Good stuff. Rex, thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, how do we stay in touch with Rex, and what are the things you have in the future horizons?
Oh, thanks for that. And again, a privilege and an honor to be here and such great stuff. Before I give you that, I want to say that your statement, I'm no good at math, is exactly what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And Galen saying, sometimes we don't teach our brain to do anything or our subconscious mind to do anything. What we actually do is let it run on with what it has already learned. And so it continues to perpetuate the stuff that we don't want to do. But your question, or your statement is an affirmation. I'm no good at math. It's an affirmation. It's what the whole auto-suggestion, everything is about. That is how we program our subconscious mind, and therefore you get the results. So I've been teaching and training and sharing this stuff online and offline for 50 years now, and I'm available at rexsikes.com. That's my name. Somewhere in there, and at rexsikes.com/book. That's to my book. I write about this in Life on Your Terms, the stuff that we've discussed. We can go deep and dive in there. I encourage people to get it. But I also, and if you do, you get the book, I'll give you a $497 training on the mastery. This is how you learn to train your brain, your subconscious mind, and learn any skill that you'd like to learn easier and faster. So for the cost of the book at Amazon, you can get a $500 training at no charge. But I've got a lot of programs, and one of them that right now is about reprogramming your subconscious mind using the theta state to expand your creativity, problem solving, and your intuition. It's called Create Your Best Life Using the Genius of Einstein and Tesla, and you can find it at rexsikes.com. So I encourage people to go get the book, get the program, and join me. Google me, you'll find me all over the place.
Good stuff, Rex. Thank you so much for joining us today, for being our guest again. Yes, we're going to ask you, you have to come back again in order to dive on into this text, another chapter of Think and Grow Rich. For those of you who are still with us, thank you so much for being patient as we went over time today. But this was a very special show, reflecting on our subconscious mind. And listen, this impacts all of us in some form or fashion, all of us. And we have to ask ourselves, in what ways are we impacting our subconscious mind, and how can we do it better? And that's really what I took away today, how I can continue to do this better in order to accomplish my goals and my objectives. Again, my name is Dr. Peter A. James. This has been phenomenal. This is the Think and Grow Rich live show. Same time, same place, every single week, folks. Until next week, we'll continue to think and grow rich. Take care.